All right, let's dive right into this. If you've been paying attention to enterprise software in 2026, you already know the ground beneath our deployment pipelines is shifting, and it's shifting fast. But the conversation we're having today, it actually goes way beyond deployment speed or developer experience. Today, in this explainer, we're going to unpack how the massive rise of AI agents has accidentally triggered a huge, hidden compliance trap. We're talking about the US Cloud Act and why EU data jurisdiction is suddenly the most critical thing you need to be paying attention to.
So we really need to kick things off by asking one massive question. Think about this for a second. Who actually owns your agent's data? Seriously, because in 2026, the real battle has moved completely away from the nuts and bolts of pipelines and right into the hands of AI. The platform you choose today isn't just dictating how your code gets pushed to production anymore. It's quietly deciding which legal jurisdiction can literally compel access to your proprietary code and which AI agents get to touch it along the way. That is a total paradigm shift.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the old CI/CD battle. Second, how agents change the rules. Third, the data jurisdiction trap. And finally, true European cloud sovereignty. Let's get right to it.
Section 1, the old CI/CD battle. To really understand where we're going, we just need to briefly set the stage and acknowledge the legacy platforms you're probably already intimately familiar with.
To get our baseline straight, here is the classic cheat sheet of the big three platforms. And let's be real, most large organizations are still running these simultaneously. First up, we've got Jenkins. It's the self-hosted workhorse that just absolutely refuses to die. It's still the backbone of roughly 80% of the Fortune 500, even though it's incredibly expensive to maintain. Then there's GitHub Actions, right? It dominates greenfield projects and open source because it requires zero infrastructure, and it's just blazingly fast. And finally, GitLab CI/CD, which is just eating up enterprise market share by offering this great, governed consolidation of your code, CI, and security all under one roof. For years, the whole debate was basically just picking between these three based on your operational needs. But, well, that was the old framework.
Which brings us to Section 2. Agents change the rules. We are currently seeing an AI decoupling that throws a massive wrench into things and completely changes our evaluation criteria.
Over the last year, practically every major platform shipped a native AI agent layer. And the absolute linchpin technology making this possible is MCP, the Model Context Protocol. It's a total game changer. It's an open standard that lets an AI agent actually reach right into a tool and pull real, live context, rather than just taking a wild guess based on its training data. Whether you're looking at GitHub Copilot's agent mode, GitLab's Duo agent platform, or Jenkins AI agent plugins, they all speak MCP now.
But here is the huge twist, and you really need to catch this. The agent layer is decoupling from the CI/CD engine way faster than the market is even consolidating. The hyperscalers have built agent tooling that honestly just does not care which CI/CD engine sits underneath it. Look at tools like AWS Transform, which autonomously fixes tech debt, or Google's agent-to-agent protocol. They're treating your CI/CD engines like interchangeable plumbing. They just plug into Jenkins, GitHub Actions, or GitLab without missing a beat. So picking a platform simply because it has the best AI integration, yeah, that's an outdated argument. Your agent strategy and your pipeline strategy are now two totally separate decisions.
And this decoupling leads us directly into the absolute core focus of our explainer today. Section 3, the data jurisdictions trap, and the huge fight between residency versus sovereignty.
Okay, we really need to burst a dangerous bubble here. Just because you see EU region, that absolutely does not mean it's sovereign. For years, companies honestly believed that checking a box to host their code in a Frankfurt or Paris data center was this ultimate legal shield. Spoiler alert, it is not. Storing your code in an EU data center only tells you where the physical bytes are sitting. It tells you absolutely nothing about which legal system actually has the power to compel access to those bytes.
Think of this like a giant legal shell game. On one hand, you have data residency. That's just where the servers literally live. On the other hand, you have legal jurisdiction. That's who actually holds the subpoena power. The harsh reality is that the US Cloud Act allows US authorities to compel a US headquartered company to hand over data, regardless of where in the world that data is physically sitting. So if your code is chilling in an EU region Azure or Google Cloud instance, but it's operated by a US parent company, you are still completely exposed to the US Cloud Act under current legal consensus. You've got the residency, sure, but you definitely do not have the jurisdiction.
And listen, this isn't just theoretical hand-wringing by lawyers. The EU knows about this loophole. They literally built the cloud sovereignty framework specifically to score cloud providers against this exact gap. To reach their top tier, a provider has to use fully EU or European Economic Area sourced hardware supply chains plus open source foundations. To put that into perspective, this very framework was used to evaluate bids in the EU's own €180 million sovereign cloud tender. And guess what? Not a single major provider hit that top tier. No way. Literally not one. So let's put our big three legacy players to the test, looking strictly at Cloud Act exposure and actual jurisdictional safety. GitHub Enterprise Cloud rolled out EU data residency, which is great, but because it runs on Azure under Microsoft, a US parent, their Cloud Act exposure is still high. GitLab, on the other hand, is Netherlands-founded and open core, so it offers a different path. If you self-manage it on fully EU-owned infrastructure, like Hetzner or a Swiss provider, your exposure drops to none. You genuinely cut off the Cloud Act's reach. And Jenkins? Well, it was never a SaaS product to begin with, so its exposure is completely variable. It depends 100% on who actually owns the server you installed it on.
Moving to Section 4, True European Cloud Sovereignty. Because the legacy giants either fall short or require you to do some heavy lifting, a brand new market category has popped up. Meet the purpose-built challengers offering true jurisdiction protection. If you're tired of that residency versus jurisdiction shell game, these are for you. First, there's Woodpecker CI, which is German-led and EU-hosted by design. Then you've got Codeberg, this fantastic Berlin-based nonprofit running its stack entirely outside of US jurisdiction. And a newer player, Frem.sh, which is explicitly pitching itself as an EU sovereign CI/CD and is hosted right on T-Systems infrastructure in Germany. Now let's be completely transparent. There is a real trade-off here. If you prioritize this level of ironclad jurisdictional clarity today, you're probably trading away a bit of that plug-and-play AI agent maturity we talked about earlier. These sovereign platforms don't all have first-party MCP servers just yet. But for a lot of organizations, that trade-off isn't really a choice anymore. It's becoming legally mandatory.
Which brings us to a pretty harsh regulatory reality. If your organization touches GDPR, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, or DORA, or NIST 2 cybersecurity obligations, data jurisdiction absolutely positively must be in your procurement documents right now. This distinction between residency and jurisdiction, it can't just be some little footnote you accidentally discovered during an audit. It fundamentally changes which tools are even allowed to be on the table in the first place.
Ultimately, as you rethink your compliance obligations and look toward this wild future of AI-driven development, this is the single most important question you have to ask before your next procurement cycle. Are you just solving for data residency to check a physical box, or are you actually solving for legal jurisdiction to truly protect your data? The landscape in 2026 demands that you know the difference. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps you navigate this tricky new reality of CI/CD and EU data jurisdiction. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.